Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of the Buffalo International Film Festival. I had to think about that for a second. My name is John Fink. I'm the artistic director of the festival, and I'm so excited that we have a nice crowd for a Sunday morning here for the BIFF panel, Building a Career in Film Production, and we are joined with some out-of-town guests that are shooting The Curse of La Llorona, the horror sequel from Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema. And I would like to kick it off, and I'll have them introduce themselves. But I always talk to my students and other filmmakers that we mentor through the festival and tell them that the path to wherever they want to get to is oftentimes not linear. Sometimes people do get lucky and they know what they want to be when they grow up. But I'm just curious for our guests if you could introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your path to now being producers on this film.
Where do I start? Maybe it's...
Yeah, if you could, we are live streaming this on YouTube, by the way. Yes.
Goodness, where did it all begin? I grew up in, my name's Jamie Buckner, hello. Sorry, we've been doing overnights, I'm still adjusting.
I could relate.
My name's Jamie Buckner. I grew up in, depending on if you know anybody from there, either Louisville, Kentucky or Louisville, Kentucky. And moved to New York City in 2004. I'm going to give you a short version of this. Ever since the pandemic, I've been living closer to Woodstock, New York. I've worked, all over most of the East Coast, lots and lots all over New York, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, Massachusetts. Started in the production office, PA, secretary, coordinator, supervisor. Anyway, made my way to production manager and producer, executive producer, and UPM on this movie, Directors Guild, and I also write, direct, and produce my own things.
Fantastic, thank you.
Go Bills.
Yeah.
Forgot that part. Go Bills. Start and end.
My name's Emile, Gladstone. I'm a producer on the Revenge of La Llorona. I came to Hollywood after graduating college in 1990 to be a screenwriter. I worked in physical production to make a living from 90 to 95 when I decided to pivot and I became an agent. I was an agent for almost 20 years, where I was last a partner at ICM and co-ran the literary department. I've been a career producer for 10 years. Go Bills.
Hi, I'm Maniscalco. Also working on this lovely film with these gents. I started off after college in New York City. I was working in promos for TV Land and Nick at Night before I jumped to LA. And I started, after being an assistant out there, jumping to DreamWorks Studios and then Amblin Entertainment, both Steven Spielberg's companies. Worked as a studio executive for over a decade, and then left 2 years ago to start producing, which is pretty similar, but there are definitely different nuances which we could talk about, but it's been great.
Fantastic. Actually, Tim, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about
Sure.
your
Yeah,
career.
I'm Tim Clark, the Regional Film Commissioner for the western part of the state here, and I guess my path began in the 1980s. I graduated from college. I went to work in local television news. I worked for Channel 7, WKBW here, the ABC affiliate, and went and worked a little bit at NBC, the place right next door here, WGRZ television. And from there I was recruited out to government. 2 different county executives that I worked for. I actually worked for Governor Cuomo as his regional representative. Not Andrew Cuomo, that shows you how old I am, but his dad, Mario Cuomo. And so I had a lot of government experience. I knew enough to be dangerous in production a little bit. And all of a sudden this film commissioner position became open. And I went for it, and I figured, well, when people like Jamie or Mia or Emile come to town, the last thing they want to hear about is, what lens should I use, or what, because they know that, right? They want to know, how do I get rid of that stop sign that's in the shot? How do I get this light covered from the, the power company? And so my government experience was quite helpful with that. And so in my, and I've really kept up, I think, with our local political structure, as well as Rich Wall, who I know is here too. He's our Director of Operations. Between the two of us, we have everybody's cell phone number. We really try to work a lot of magic. And in Buffalo and Western New York, it's still a bit of a novelty to shoot here. So, the people are very supportive of that. So that's my story.
Great. Yeah, we had the Hallmark panel yesterday, and they were very complimentary about everything that you do, and
We love
be
Hallmark.
willing to,
It's
it's gonna rain, we'll move things around this way.
Oh yeah.
keeping on the theme of getting your foot in the door and kind of first careers, do you have any kind of getting your foot in the door story, or maybe an early mentor that kind of helped shape your career, if you wanted to share something about that?
I mean, I guess I'll just go first again. I was managing a sunglass hut in downtown Cincinnati after college, trying to figure out where my life was going to go, and I heard a radio ad looking for extras for a movie called Seabiscuit. I went to Lexington, Kentucky, in I think it was the November of 2002. Slept on my friend's dorm room floor so I could get up at 4 a.m. to go get in my period suit, and was just an extra in Seabiscuit for 2 weeks, I think it was, and I just bugged the hell out of the production people the whole time. I said, how do I do this? Can I help you? What are you doing? Are you counting things? Are you alphabetizing? Can I help you? And they're like, get out of here, kid. Leave me alone. And I did that for a few days in a row, just long enough for me to be able to continue to start helping, wearing my 40s suit that I was being very precious about, but just helping in every way I could. Got a couple names, got a couple connections, worked for free on a couple small projects, got a job at my local TV affiliate through having a little bit of experience doing that. It was the Fox station down there, WDRB. And and then that's how I started building up a resume. So sometimes, I like to say the lesson is just be a little annoying. Not a lot of annoying, but it can help.
That's what I found, is that I always say, find somebody, be useful to them, and if you're really useful to them, they might take you around the world. That's been the experience that many of my friends have had, getting their start here in productions in Buffalo, and then, my friend Holly was in Morocco as a production designer on a film that she made friends with from the folks that were working on Cabrini here. Anyways, I'm sorry.
Making movies is incredibly collaborative. No one person makes a movie, and you never know sort of who amongst us is going to be a great leader in the industry, perhaps a filmmaker that kind of breaks through. So whenever anyone asks you to do anything, whether it's make a sandwich or hold a boom mic or just show up and help lock down a location or be an extra, you just do it, right? It's just always yes. Find your people, rise with them. And then on Jamie's point, doers do. This is not a business where anyone's going to invite you to the party. You just got to do it. So even in the smallest way, my first job was as a PA for a White Cloud toilet tissue commercial in 1990. I knew one person in Hollywood. He was my friend's brother, a location manager, who got me a job as a PA on this commercial. Call time was 5 a.m. I showed up early. Early is on time. I'm looking for my boss, someone I've never met, can't find him. I go to the kitchen to have a drink because it was very early for me. And I went to go get a Coca-Cola out of the fridge and there were none. There were just pallets of soda stacked next to the fridge. And so I just started putting the soda in the fridge, and then some man said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Emile Gladstone. Have you found Mark Freed?" And he said, "I'm Mark Freed." And then he asked me, "Who told me to put Cokes in the fridge?" And I said, "No one." My phone never stopped ringing. I was incredibly popular. All of a sudden, the small community that is production, who knows people, Jamie's greatest contribution to the movie is two. First, I can make it in Buffalo at your price. Two, bringing us in business with some of the best people that we could imagine to lead our departments. How does he know this? Did he get lucky? No. It's years and years and years of curating a list of people. And he's hit a home run for us. And it's come out of the local pool in New York City, but that's the collaboration that is our business, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. And anyway, put Cokes in the fridge. Go Cokes.
Do you have a story you'd like to share?
I don't even know. I mean, these gents kind of covered a lot of the same thing, and I think it is just kind of putting your foot in the door and not knowing who that person is, kind of talking to everybody. I did a bunch of kind of informational interviews, which is not dissimilar from showing up to these things, where you just kind of asked everybody, because I didn't know what a producer or studio executive did. I don't know if you did it even about being an agent. It was like everything in film is writer, actor, director. And then as I started to learn more, I was like, I don't want to be a writer or a director or an actor, but there is a job that I really like. And it was a lot of discovery just getting to that part. I mean, I worked in promos first, which if you don't know promos, it's kind of commercials for different television networks. So working at Nick at Night and putting that together, and it was a fabulous job, and I love New York City, but it was about 30 seconds of content. So that was kind of the first job, and then it was I jumped out to LA, and like Emile, and probably like Jamie's experience too, slept on a friend's couch and knew nobody in town, and started working at Borders bookstore, rest in peace, and meeting, and people would come in, and you just kind of be like, oh, what do you do? Oh, do you mind if I come in and I'll sit with you for 15 minutes and ask you how you got started? And then one of those coffees turned into, well, actually, we have an internship. So how much does it pay? 0. I'm like, I'll take it, like it was just doing that kind of stuff, and it slowly, expanded my group and my circle, and that's how I got the assistant job, and then kept going up, exactly kind of how these gents did, but in a slightly different path.
Fantastic. So while we're on the topic of producing, I'd like to ask you about taking this franchise to Buffalo, and some of the amenities that we offer, and maybe what the decisions were in terms of maybe other markets that were equally competitive, and why Buffalo was the choice for this project.
Sure. I mean, we love Buffalo. It's the
That's
first
a
thing.
quick on the spot from the commission.
No, it's been great. It's been great. So it's, beautiful time of year to be here, guys. We started in July and we kind of go to November, so I feel like we're getting the absolute best, the prettiest time of year. So this movie, the first one, which Emile can talk about, was shot in LA, which we'd all love as well. And admittedly, LA is quite an expensive place to shoot anything these days. So like my last movie was in Budapest, and I've been in Ireland and all over the world, and a ton of Canada, but it's really great to be able to shoot in the US. And we had initially been scripted to be a border town in Texas, and the idea was to go to Colombia, which also has a good rebate. And then the studio kind of said, well, can you make it for X amount? And that X amount was just a little bit less than we could do in Colombia. So that kind of started this mad dash for where are we gonna go and how are we gonna do it? And New York had just kind of raised the incentive program and made this an incredibly valuable place to be. And obviously, the city is great and there's tons of production there, but kind of going outside of that bubble, 1, fit us better narratively, and 2, helped with the budget. So it was kind of that. Admittedly, Buffalo doesn't look like a border town in Texas, so we had some narrative changes to accommodate that, but I actually think it added to our story as well.
Can I ask a spoiler? Is it set on the Canadian border now or no?
It's still a border town. I guess I shouldn't even be
Oh,
talking
okay,
about where we're
sorry.
exactly
We can't
set
talk about the plot of the
up,
film.
but yeah.
Do you guys have
It's
any-
set at Borders, the old.
Borders
bookstore.
summer. Cool. Borders Books and Music. Jamie, you also mentioned too that you were integral in the part of bringing it to Buffalo. Do you want to talk a bit about how you maybe pitched the idea to bring this project to Buffalo?
I got a phone call. I first read the script when it was going to be in Columbia, right in the middle of another New Line project called Companion. And, our studio executive, wonderful Sarah Roberts, shout out for anybody listening, said, give this a read, let me know what you think. And then the strike happened, the SAG strike happened, and things happened in Columbia. They couldn't quite hit the number, and then all that went away. And so it feels like a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, I get a call again saying like, hey, you want to reread that? This new New York incentive is very intriguing. I was in the middle of an entirely different project in Poughkeepsie. And I said, well, sure, let me, on weekends and like the hours I have free, let me look through it again. And I read through it again, and I was like, well, you know what? The whole opening and this big sequence in the middle and all of these things, I was like, really the only place that makes sense for this and could be perfect would be Buffalo. To which we get, what's the new, we want to make up t-shirts that have a new slogan that just say Buffalo. Who knew? And so that was it, and we started a conversation, and then there was this 2-week sort of waiting period for the magical Melanie Moores, for anyone out there who knows her, location manager. I'm really ride or die for the entire Moores family for that matter, but specifically Melanie. And she was in the middle of a couple commercials, and a couple weeks went by, and I was like, Melanie, just do a file pull. I know, just like, I need this, 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 and this. I know it exists. Please show these people's pictures. And I'm on this other project, and we're just waiting it out for 2 weeks, and she finally sends a link to some pictures, and I think a couple hours go by, and the director and the studio and everybody were like, oh my goodness, this is perfect, let's go. And then next thing you knew, I was in Buffalo.
I mean, you have to understand how collaborative this business is and how many left turns and curveballs are thrown out to you, not only physical, but in pre-production and in development. There's so many stops and starts, you have to be ready to adjust. Like in life, you have to be ready to adjust, because it's just not gonna go your way. So we put this in development in 2019 after the success of the first film. Sean Tretta, our writer, killed it, and we had a good script fast. And a studio, shout out to New Line Cinema, the House of Freddy, that knows how to make horror movies. And they got it right away. So we were in a really good position early, and we were gonna make this movie in Colombia with a different filmmaker. And then all of a sudden the strike hit, and it all kind of blew up, and we lost that brilliant filmmaker. And we were, you know, kind of like at an all is lost place, but what do producers do? We just keep going. It never dies for us. Everyone else is just so subjective, right? It's objective for the producer. The producer carries the water for 20 years maybe to get that movie made. It doesn't make sense, but you just are compelled to make that story. And this horror movie, because of its monsters, because it's so audience forward, because it's like a really, really, really special script, we knew we would persevere. So it was many different places at different times. We were making in Spain, in Argentina, in Mexico. You know, we run plans in so many places. And then one day, the planets align in the studio as well as externally with an expert like Jamie who says, I can do it, and figures it out for us. And next thing you know, we weren't in a border town like we were for, I don't know how many years, 5 years. We weren't in Texas anymore. You know, we were somewhere else. Sure, yes and. Because the core of the movie is the care of the family and the scares of the monster. Everything else you can pivot from. You have to be in the solutions business.
I'd love to talk more because your background, of course, is producing the first film in the franchise, Jamie Companion, which was a success in January or this year. Can you talk a bit about, I don't know if Companion, I think did you announce a sequel or no? Or no, not yet. But that sort of that wheelhouse of that very bankable, $10 to $15 million or under 20 horror film that can be a modest hit. That New Line, I guess, sort of specializes in. Warner Brothers, of course, is kind of the hot new studio the last couple months with many #1 openings. But if you talk about the development of that process, and is that something that you think of when you're shooting the first movie? Is this expandable into a universe of sorts or with spin-offs?
You're taught never to force the franchise, never to think about #2. The core mission is making the audience feel something in the first movie. Make them feel scared, make them feel like a love for the character. The sequel will take care of itself. The audience will tell us when, it feels forced sometimes, but it's not, especially at this studio. They're very sensitive, they understand franchise management, which I know sounds like a very corporate word, but they are executives. And they are very creative, but they also understand sort of a bigger picture that perhaps the audience isn't thinking of. So no forced franchises. We're not thinking about remaking 2. We're just thinking about making the best damn 2 there can.
I actually want to drill in more about franchise management. That's fascinating to me. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of back and forth? I know someone like, and this is not, of course, related to any of your projects, but Jason Blum was like, I take credit for the failure of Megan 2 because we switched the genre up. And that was a creative risk. Is there, if you talk maybe about creative risks and maybe expanding that universe and but not pulling it too far into a direction the audience might not want to go?
Well, there's a great quote that I think is true that I heard, a long time ago. No one knows nothing. It's still true, right? And so Jason Blum's amazing, and what he's built in his career is incredible. But he doesn't always know, right? And so, I'm not here I'm not as qualified as Jason to talk about franchise management. I am making my first sequel. This is my 4th movie as a producer. As an agent, I was part of many, many, many franchises with writers, directors, etc. And all I could say is, again, isolating what you're, as the steward of the movie, what you're hoping is audience facing. It's also personal why filmmakers and storytellers do it. But for the most part, in my opinion, the successful, career producer is thinking about the audience. And what do they want? We have a contract with the audience. They're giving us $25. We're hoping they're going to the theater. Are we trying to make a good movie? That's so subjective, right? Like one person's treasure is another person's junk, and vice versa. Good is who knows, right? Does it make us feel? Oh, it made me feel excited. Oh, it made me feel scared. Oh, I really cared about those characters. Oh, I cried when, the climax happened and they saved the kid or they got back together. That's emotion, right? So we can suppose that they want emotion. And so with franchise management and all these other things, it's really about, can we isolate emotion, let's say, behind a monster, behind an iconic monster, right? And James Wan our brilliant partner, he taught me that your movie is only as good as your monster. And he reminded me that the monster's on the t-shirt, not the hero. No one remembers the hero. Everyone loves a bad guy, right? And so with franchise management, at least, you can see a lot of successful franchises because that monster, shout out to Freddy Krueger, appears in multiple movies. And when you see that monster, it makes you feel something. As maybe the Black Phone mask, which I'm really excited about. Shout out to Jason Blum, and the filmmakers for that. So anyway, I go on. Go Bills.
Yes. I guess maybe we'll go back to the question of Buffalo and working with regional film commissioners. Can you talk a little bit about that negotiation, or at least that, you mentioned, of course, what you're looking for in a location. It's obviously got to serve the script, but also there may be, other creative compromises too that kind of maybe come out of that and happy accidents. And can you talk maybe a little bit about that and just working with the film commission to get to that number that you and the studio are comfortable with?
I guess that's kind of very specifically our wheelhouse. We're very fortunate, and I swear this is not just because they're both sitting in the room right now. We're very fortunate. A lot of places you go to I've been to, you need a lot of help from the film commission. It's through, we were very lucky. I live in the Hudson Valley. The Hudson Valley Film Commission was basically one guy who just recently passed away. Laurent Rejo was just an incredible man. So he was incredibly helpful about finding crew, finding locations, really a one-man band. And then you've got the sort of opposite end of it. I'll go to areas and be like, who's your film commission? Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much. My instinct is to name drop places, but I'm not going to do that. I don't spread negativity into the world. You go to certain places, and we totally have a film commission, great, and it's someone who has it's like number 10 on their 15 jobs that they have. And it's something they do between emails for, everything else in their governmental position, and it's part of the tourism, bureau, or it's part of it. And they're just like, absolutely, I'm the film commissioner. It's like, great, I need da 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 da, and you don't hear back from them for weeks at a time, or they never are able to really have any help with you at all. And it's sad. You're like, I'm happy this position exists, but also just so you know, it doesn't. You don't have a film commission. You don't have a film office. This is very not helpful. And they'll be like, well, go to the state office. And the state office is somebody else who isn't focused on you or can't help you and all those sorts of things. So the value of having someone actively involved, very communicative, very actual helpful, and helping you keep prices down. Sometimes, things as silly as this parking ticket seems like we shouldn't have got it because we were permitted, it's everything from big to small. This location, is it going to work out for us? How do we pivot to somewhere else? Okay, here's 6 other options. Let's go see them today. Tim and Rich we're very, very lucky to have them here in this community, and they're part of the reason that I'm able to, push movies this direction. It's because I know I have their support.
All right, I'll send you the trip.
Mia and then also Tim, if you want to tag in on this one, I'm just curious about maybe some of what you're looking for, in terms of those relationships with film commissions, and as from your end as the lead producer on the film, and then Tim, if you want to also talk about some of the services that you offer and things that you do for filmmakers, and I won't ask about the most unusual requests, but if you want to throw that in, that'd be awesome.
Well, I guess what I'll give the Film Commission credit for, and Melanie as well, and you guys were talking about the Hallmark panel yesterday, is being able to show a city or a place and how incredibly diverse it can be. Hallmark is using a much different locales than we are doing a horror film, and the way, to see a city and to see a city being able to stand in for many different places and what it appeals to, and, being open and approaching that way, and also being a place that we want to live and spend time in, which is great too. And how do we navigate the city as being guests for 3 months, 4 months, and that's been lovely.
Well, thank you. It's I think with us, and to both your points, we're a very unusual film office, unlike many others. We know these are visitors to us, right? So we know they're also spending millions of dollars and employing people in this community. So for us, it's marketing. We market the area. We try to make sure that everyone here understands that this is a diverse, we have a lot of diverse architectural assets here, but it's also logistics. We got to figure out where to park these big trucks. We got to help figure out, okay, like I said earlier, how do we remove the stop sign, or how do we get of a sudden, you know, we gotta get a water truck in in the middle of the night, and we beg the Teamsters to allow us to bring the fire engines in. It's those kinds of things. So we do get those kinds of requests, but we're also very cognizant that Mia, Emile, Jamie, although Jamie's been here before, they want to see things on their days off. So we will do these VIP things at Niagara Falls. We'll take them to the museums. We'll let them, you know, sort of immerse themselves into the cultural side of this community. You know, the quality of life here is something that I think is very understated. People don't understand Buffalo if you've never been here before. When they get here, they have a whole different impression. That's why we get an awful lot of repeat customers, like Jamie, but also like Jonathan Sanger, like Hallmark. They vow to return over and over. Great American Family, all these people, all these networks, all these production companies that have had a good experience, remember that, and they return, they come back, and so forth. Rich and I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, I would tell you that we could get a call in the middle of the night, we get a sick actor, and this has happened many times, actually, more than it should have probably, but you know, we need to then get somebody at the hospital or to get a doctor to go and see this person or whatever. We've done everything from, you know, finding lost dogs to, which we were able to find, and to, you know, to medical emergencies or things like that. When A Quiet Place 2 is here, that several of those actors, you know, needed quick help, and we were able to pivot. So I think a lot of this is just our ability to pivot quickly and to adapt to whatever their needs and requests are.
If I can ask one more before we turn over to the audience, and this is for the whole group on stage here, about the cruise in Buffalo, and just having that sort of knowing. I remember at one point we were talking years ago about knowing where the bodies are buried, right? Knowing who's here, or who's living here, who can be brought in, and if you talk about those resources, then just your experience working with the cruise, since you are, these guys are actively in production right now. They're doing overnights, and they were very generous to come in this morning to talk with us, talk a bit about our crewing up in Buffalo.
I'm going to let you all start because I have a little bit of biased experience with these gangs, and this is their first go with our Buffalo cruise.
I mean, so I guess when we one weekend, it has been fabulous. I feel like it is an incredibly hardworking group of people who are also incredibly friendly and nice. You know what I mean? It's just not to say that's not the case all over the world, but like there's different levels of how quickly you feel at home, and I feel like Emile and I can both say we felt at home so quickly, and have, I mean, even through prep, have just been people welcome us literally into their homes to come over and, you know, watch the Bills. So it has been a fabulous experience, and it's shown in the work too. They've been really excellent.
Yeah, I mean, this is the city of the good neighbor, and so you see that with the cruise too. I mean, it really is a thing. I talk about it with my friends in LA, and I think we really are blown away by the energy, because, you know, this is really hard work. It's you know, we're working really long hours. These people are very skilled, and attitude is everything. And you know, we like to think that it comes from, you know, leadership. You know, Jamie has got a great attitude and is a fair and good leader. And then our department heads that we hired, along with our director, Santiago, are all really good people, sort of a no assholes policy, which was easier to find perhaps here than in other countries. I don't know. I mean, I guess we've always been lucky. It's something we always look for. But we found it, I think, in Buffalo. And yeah, the crews have been extraordinarily hardworking and really, really good at their jobs.
Go Bills.
Smart move always.
I will say we call it the Buffalo Aloha. We just start and end anything when we're talking about this with Go Bills. I think in different parts of the world, you always find sort of the first question when people want to call me and want to shoot, because I get a lot of emails. Just here's a script. Here's the amount of money we have, the amount of days we have to shoot it. Where should we go? They'll have somewhere in mind, but sometimes it's like, okay, we could be Toronto, we could be Puerto Rico, we could be Ireland. You know, it's just sort of, it's an open, the world is your oyster, literally. Not literally, but you know what I mean. So when you start those conversations, a lot of the early questions involve like, okay, but can you crew up a movie there? Can you do the locals, do the work? Can they, cut the mustard, all that, pick your turn phrase. Buffalo, and I said this very early on and say it often when people mention this city, we have such incredible talent. I say we like I live in Buffalo. I feel like a
Go Bills.
close to a logo. Close to a logo. Oh, honorary. That's nice. I say yes, absolutely, 100%. You can crew an entire movie here and do it incredibly well with top of the line professionals. We're very, very fortunate to have a very, very good crew here, especially after the incentive's been going here for a little while now and people have gotten the experience. The interesting thing is, depending on who you're working with, there's a lot of the credit obsession. Like, okay, well, what have they done? Let's see their resume. What's going on? And there's a lot of sort of chicken and egg catch-22 situation with that. It's like, well, this person's incredible and they do incredible work. Okay, let me see their resume. Oh, they've only worked on 3 movies. Right, because they've only been given the shot on 3 movies. And I think this with PAs, I think this with diversifying our crews and our talent, inclusion in general across the board, in a global sense and in a local sense, where people need to be given the opportunity. And the more films, more television shows, the more opportunities we bring to Buffalo, the more those credits are going to stack. And the more people are going to believe me with the receipts on the paper, and instead of having to, no, do the interview. No, give this person the shot, like on blind luck and faith, and get them in there and they'll show you how they can do. Our gaffer here locally, our hair and makeup team here locally, our grips are some of the best I've ever worked with here locally. And you need people to give them the shot. And to everyone I'm working with on this production and New Line and our creatives and everyone, to everyone's credit, they've given so many people the shot on this movie. And it's just gonna take us that much further in keeping productions hired fully locally in Buffalo moving forward. Because we have some of the best.
Tim, do you want
Go
to
Bills.
do you want to talk a little bit about kind of keeping the database of crew and also the training and all of that we've invested in as the commissioner?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been doing this job for nearly 2 decades, and I can tell you that when I first began, we had 12 people that were Local 52 IATSE. And it was a struggle, but we didn't get a lot of productions here because we didn't have a lot of crew. The incentives weren't, the Canadians always kind of beat us in the incentive game, and so that was always difficult. We would lose projects to Vancouver, to Toronto, to Montreal, and so that hurt a little bit. What I would tell you, and I saw Darlene Hummert out here earlier, the people that were there early on, as Darlene was, they really are trailblazers, and I envy their stick-to-itiveness, I suppose, in this business, because it became something. It became a part of our new sector economy here now. There's over 200 members of Local 52 here now, and many more, ready to go. They just, are gonna need to sign the card and to get into the union. So we're very fortunate that New York State and the governor and the legislature have made these incentives possible. It is in fact one of the more lucrative places in the United States, and some say even the world, that you get more value here. The other thing that you get here, very tangibly, is things are cheaper here. A hotel room in Buffalo is a lot less than it is in Manhattan, for instance, or in Los Angeles or whatever. And then there's also the intangible. And Emile said it earlier, we're known as the city of good neighbors. Nobody expects the friendliness and the warmth that exudes from the people of Western New York. I think it's our secret weapon. I think we in this room collectively are should really stand tall about that. The city of good neighbors is not just the Chamber of Commerce slogan or a bumper sticker on the back of a car. It's a real way of life here. If we get 5 feet of snow, God forbid, you shovel your driveway and then you go check on your neighbors to make sure they're okay. And you know what? It exudes in every other form of culture here, including movie making.
Fantastic. I'd love to turn it over to the City of Good Neighbors. If anyone has a question, please ask and I'll repeat it so that we can have that recorded for the live stream. Do we have any questions in the house? Yes. And that's, I think, Jessica, who's screening a film here later today. Jessica.
Hi. I directed a film that's screening today and produced it, but I'm a member of Local 600 in still photographer. I'm from Buffalo. I'm based in Philly and New York. But my question is it just the tax incentives that's causing all the productions to go out of the country right now? Or is it health insurance? Is it a combination of the two?
I can speak to that a little bit. I spent a couple years as the president of the Association of Film Commissioners International, and there have been some very, very envious countries that want this business. Ireland comes to mind, the UK actually, and anywhere there, Wales, Ireland, a lot of shooting in London and Manchester. You've heard recently Marvel is leaving Atlanta to go, and it is, and it's because there is very often no health costs there, and also, it's, somebody said it the other day on a podcast, it's crazy to think that you put your people on a plane, shoot them over the pond, and put them up in a fancy hotel in London, and somehow that's cheaper than shooting, than walking across the back lot in Los Angeles. It's just the way it is. I know the DGA right now, the Directors Guild, is lobbying very, very hard to do something about that. And whether it's this tariff thing that we keep hearing about, or whether it's something a little more, realistic, I think then, that's what has to happen.
I think that people don't realize how fragile movies are. How hard, how many miles have been walked before the actual physical production of it just to get it what we call in the gate and going. What a crucible that is. There's so many movies competing for so few slots. And the creative producers, the career producers, we're not really thinking about the business model. We're thinking about the audience, right? But there are others that are thinking about the business model and fair, right? We think these media corporations are so rich, but the metrics are really tough. If you just isolate, the larger the screen, the harder the profitability. If you just thought about profitability today, you would only be making movies for your iPhone, because that ROI is great compared to the ROI on the movie business. So we are working so hard to get these movies made. And we're not, of course we'd love to make every movie by our house, so I can see my 2 daughters every day. So I don't sacrifice what I have to sacrifice to make my dreams come true. But I just want to get my movie made. And the movies have left America because the metrics, the economics push it there, no other reason. No one is thinking about anything other than the bottom line in the P&L, right? And again, I've been in the movie business since 1990. It's hard, right? It's always been hard. Everyone's like, oh, it's so much harder now. Maybe. It's always been hard, but the metrics are definitely changed a lot, and the margins are much smaller than you think. So when you think about all that business that's leaving America, it's because of incentive. We are in Buffalo today because it's the best incentive in the world, given our mood.
I mean, you're talking about the tax incentive.
100%. For every dollar we spend, we get money back. So then your X movie is X minus whatever your incentive is. And that's really attractive. We call it net versus gross, and the net spend is really what they're putting their P&L against. And we're able to make more expensive movies, which makes them better for the audience, because you can isolate, what makes something scary, time, right? More time for the filmmaker to make it scary. And we can create a better experience for the audience. And so I really hope that incentive continues. I feel like that is the way that we can make our movies here in America. But there's nothing larger or political. It's really just dollars and cents.
Right, but I'm saying as a community in the film world, what should we be pushing for? So I guess we should be pushing for like a national incentive.
A national incentive would be joyous. That would be wonderful. But your crews that have continued to grow with more production here, and that's also something that is a tangible. So all of a sudden a different state threw out an amazing incentive, but there were no crews. I mean, there's a lot of very talented and experienced production executives that think about production plan and think about what that day is like. And if it's a C-team crew because they don't have the experience, then they put that into the equation. The fact that Buffalo's crews are as good as they are along with the incentive is the decision making.
And there is a little bit of the creative, that like part of the reason we're at Buffalo is the incentive, but also that it fits the narrative. And that is something that the creatives will fight for, because I have made a movie in Hungary that was meant to be in Pennsylvania, and it's a little crushing, you know what I mean? So sometimes when you get to shoot America, and like Emile said, we all kind of want to be home, and Buffalo, as far as it's not next to LA, is a whole lot closer. So it is something that creatively, when there's that merit in the movie, we really kind of try to fight for that and try to bring that to life. So that, you know, balances it out a little bit, but it is kind of a battle that we're all doing kind of on a project basis.
To answer your what seems like your direct question, what you should be pushing for is 100% a national, a U.S. tax incentive, be it overall base 10%, 20%, whatever we can get. Also, we do not have to get political, but nationalized healthcare. The fact that healthcare is such a dumpster fire in this country is a huge contributor to why we lose a lot of productions. I'm in a union because I'm very big on organized labor. I was on the executive board of Local 161 IATSE for over a decade. My parents were union, all of these things. The reason I'm in a union to this day is part because of that, and largely because I need health insurance, because my country doesn't give that to me. When you go to the UK, when you go to other places that have nationalized health care, you don't have to pay union, pension, health, welfare, any benefits, because their country takes care of them on that front. It's an enormous piece of what is happening that is making these countries the bottom line, because it does come down to the bottom line. We can really get into it. I'll talk to you at length about my favorite author, Wendell Berry, and how he talks about how individualism is the bottom, is at the bottom of all of the bad things in your life. Is people thinking about themselves, me and mine, before they're thinking about the community. So, really, those are the things you should be pushing for. We need to be lobbying for a national base level tax incentive for all productions. We need to stop talking about a tariff on these, because it's I'll slip a little bit into it. It's nonsense. It's unenforceable. It doesn't mean anything.
How do you put a tariff on it?
It's not real. It's a figment of an imagination, maybe a couple of imaginations around that one imagination that doesn't mean anything. So we need to stop talking about that, and we need to get real about how to keep productions in America, because as Emile said, it's about the bottom line. And right now the bottom line, the end of the day, full stop, it is too expensive to make a movie in America. The end. People are going to Hungary, they're going to Ireland, they're going to Australia, they're going to South Africa, they're going wherever they can where it's cheaper to make their movie. And right now America is too expensive to make a movie, and we have to fix that.
And our union crews are suffering.
Absolutely.
I just lost our health insurance for the first time because I can't.
I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that. And there are people out here, I personally and many, many close colleagues are fighting to change that. And honestly, we need companies like Warner Brothers and New Line to, of course, they're corporations, they have shareholders to answer to, but this is a choice. They've made a choice to come to Buffalo. They've made a choice to keep this movie in America when it fought and dragged and kicked and screamed to be anywhere else. And then we kept it in America, and it's because they made a choice to allow that to happen. So we have to incentivize that. We have to make a great movie to show them that was the right choice.
Absolutely. I think we have time for one or two more questions. Yes, in front.
Going back to somewhat in terms of what Emile said as far as return on investment and the fact that I want to talk a little bit about genre, and that are you all permanently in the horror genre? It appears as if it is, and then yesterday Hallmark had their panel. But the implication in terms of genre on return on investment.
So, genre on return investment. I know this is not a huge budget film, but
I mean, look, it's also personal, right? Everybody here has a personal reason for why they do what they do, because it certainly doesn't make a lot of sense, right? You can't really explain it to somebody. For me personally, I love genre films. I love thrillers, horror movies, sci-fi movies, and R-rated comedies. These are the movies that I absolutely love, that I'd be willing to leave my family for, to go make my personal dream come true. Now, of course, I appreciate the drama, the musical, the sports movie, and all these other things, but each movie in itself is a crucible. And you can't be at all like subjective or like, yeah, that would be good. You have to wake up every day like, how the fuck am I gonna get this movie made? And it has to be like, it has to feel high stakes, like your hero stakes. Like, how am I gonna, pay bills unless I get this movie made? And, you know, genre is a great ROI. There's no doubt about it. You know, I've been in Hollywood a long time. They never used to talk about us. We were just the quiet redheaded stepchild in the corner, you know, while they had dinners and lunches with movie stars and movie star directors. No one really wanted to talk about it, but we were there and we were profitable, and they continued to make those movies. And all of a sudden, the ROI in the horror business, because you make them for less and you're scrappy and you're not, you know, usually star driven and not needing those perks, and you can make it in a grain silo and no one's crying about it because they're genre filmmakers and they're scrappy. All of a sudden, these movies are on earnings calls. These movies are being talked about at the highest level in the movie business. Doesn't mean they still don't want to go out to dinner with movie stars and movie star directors, but there's a spotlight on us now in a really good way, right? And you know, all of a sudden the horror director has gotten a ton of respect. It used to be, oh yeah, you know, and then they realize that a lot of their own that have reached such great heights, including Steven Spielberg, started by making a horror movie, as did Ridley Scott, as did, I mean, there's scores of them. James Cameron, you know, the horror director now is really respected, right? And in hard demand, and every studio competes for them and their projects. And they finally are getting the respect due, because it's super hard to do. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there, go on.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Yes.
I'm interested in learning, how is the creative process for you guys? And has there ever been anything that has kind of felt like a real barrier that you had to push through that was very much like, oh, this could be the end, this could be over, and how did you...
Every day. I mean, every day. I mean, look, I get so personal, I'm sure me will have a different answer to this, right? But my job starts with either having an idea, hearing an idea, or reading about an idea, right? That's where it starts. It starts with, wouldn't it be cool if? And I'm as much a storyteller as the person that is pitching me the idea, if I'm lucky enough, or, you know, and then you're in the boat, you're alone. It's super dark, the boat's leaking, you're in the middle of the ocean. You have very little food, but you're like, just there, I know, is the audience. And then one day a writer pops into the boat, right? And how did you get that writer? Were you asked, you know, people that you respect, send me a bunch of writers, I've got this cool idea. And they're like, oh, well, I know you, and you're someone that's not gonna, you know, embarrass me. So yeah, read these writers, right? And then you finally find the writer, because they're speaking a better version of what your cool idea was, right? And then one day there's a director that jumps in the boat. And then one day you got 150 people on the boat. It's pretty amazing.
Well, and to follow up on that, I would say every single one of them feels like it's going to be an impossibility. Thinking back, like my first project once I had gotten promoted, so the creative process for us on the creative producing side, you know, it varies and is a little different. So every project, you can come in as a pitch, you can come in as a script or a book or, you know, a remake in many different venues. But like a big part of my job back at Amblin and DreamWorks was to read manuscripts before they were published. And the first one I fell in love with was Girl on Train. And it was before it was published. And I had just read the book overnight. I thought it was a really amazing book, and I thought like everybody was bidding on it. So I rushed into the office and I was like, we gotta put an offer in on this. And then I found out nobody else was bidding on it, and so I won it. And then had to go into Steven Spielberg and pitch the book. And he was like, I don't get it. Why would we want to make that movie? And that was one where I was so crestfallen. I was like, but I thought this was so good. And I just kind of had it on the side, hired a writer, we toiled along, it was not a big book, and then it got published. And it was massive. So it was kind of, every kind of book you kind of creatively stick behind, even when people are less certain, and you just kind of see where that goes, and hopefully at some point there's that turning point that like brings it to life and helps, you know, keep you going.
The job starts at no. The job for all of us in this room starts at no. If you are satisfied with a yes, if you are easily dissuaded, this is not the work for you. You just gotta believe, like your hero has to believe. You are no different than the hero who your script or your story is. So many all lost moments, so many just low points. The movie's getting made. No, it's not. What do you mean? We have all the HODs hired. We have a production plan level. No, sorry, not today. whoa, right? And that happens not only on this film, but basically every movie I've ever worked on, where it's just, you know, there's so many different crucible moments. The creative producer has to sell it 6, 7 times, right? You have to be really, 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 really excited for this movie, to see this movie. And then you find like-minded people, like-minded artists that also want to see that movie. And you just all collectively just like will it to happen, because it's not easy.
I think I heard Seth Rogen say something about this pretty recently. I say this like I'm quoting like Aristotle. It was one of the truest things I've heard though is, you know, because I've said this, I like go to schools and speak, and they're like, tell us how you got where you are, and I'm just like, I'm a dopey like public school Kentucky education kid. Like you just gotta be persistent. It goes back to the sign of the first thing I said. Like it's all about persistence. You show me 100 people that tried to make it in the film business, and if there's only one left, it's just because that's the one that didn't give up. That's the one that didn't stop trying. So yes, it all starts at no, and it comes back to no, and it keeps being no, and then you get the movie shot, and still every turn it seems no, 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 and then it finally comes out, and it just works. It's really as simple as it sounds, and I find that often the correct answer is the simplest one. It's really just don't stop pushing is about the only advice I have, and the only place any quote-unquote success I've ever gotten is just like, just don't stop trying. Go Bills.
Go Bills. That's, on that note, this was such a privilege. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. Thank you for joining us this morning, getting up early for this. Please give it up for Emile, Jamie, Mia, and Tim. We have a few more panels to come, where we have a panel with the director of Remaining Native, our decolonial spotlight. We also have a panel for The Panic with Christiana Delana and Daniel Adams on the final day of the festival, and Anastasia, who's in the film. So please join us for these panels. They're always free. We're also live streaming them, so you can catch up with them later if you happen to miss them. And we have a full week of movies ahead of us here at the Buffalo International Film Festival. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Is that cool? Awesome, thank you. Oh man, I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
I was like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes, it is.